Chapter 5222. Yun Chujio blinked her eyes. This plan of mine is amazing. To put it mildly, it's called borrowing strength to fight, and to put it simply, it's called borrowing strength to fight a white wolf with bare hands. Everyone, Master Liaowu asked with a stiff face. How? No, what I mean is how to borrow strength. Yun Chujio said with a smile, we are not a match for the Divine Devil Hall and the Bitter Zen sect, but we can gather more people and let the Divine Devil Hall's tigers bite the hedgehogs and have nowhere to bite. Gather more people? Are you asking for the help of the Lan family and the Mu family? This wouldn't work. Those aristocratic families were very smart and wouldn't get involved in this mess. Moreover, the Mu family, Qi family, and Zhuang family were in collusion with the Divine Devil Hall, so how could they help us? Master Liaowu felt that Yun Chujio was a little whimsical. Yun Chujio chuckled. Her smile was sinister and treacherous. Master Liaowu couldn't help but take a step back. This mischievous laugh was really scary. Master, the so-called bustling of the world is all for profit. The bustling of the world is all for profit. If there is a huge profit, not to mention colluding with the Divine Devil Hall, even if the Divine Devil Hall is his father, he will jump into the pit willingly. Everyone, although these words were a little crude, they were not rough. However, where was the huge profit? Yun Chujio did not continue to keep them guessing. She said, although the 10,000 Buddha's Dharma assembly has ended, most of the people have not gone far. We will spread a piece of news right now. It will say that there will be a great treasure appearing in the Lianxing mountain range. As for this great treasure, there is no need to specify what it is. The more vague it is, the better. This will give people unlimited imagination. When the time comes, regardless of whether it is the 4 great families or the other forces, as well as those freelance martial artists, even if they are skeptical, they will still go and watch the show. After all, they do not know that the Divine Devil Hall has set up an ambush in the Lianxing mountain range, right? Even if they have guessed it, with so many people going, they are not afraid of offending the Divine Devil Hall. For the sake of benefits, they will also pretend to be ignorant and go there. When that time comes, the Lianxing mountain range will be filled with people. The Divine Devil Hall's people can only stare blankly and do not dare to attack us. When we leave the Lianxing mountain range, we can take the flying spirit tool and return to the Zen sect. We will infuriate them to death. Everyone's faces were filled with shock. They could do this? It was truly a wild goose chase. They did not match anything. They only needed to spread some rumors. Whatever spread the fastest, it would definitely be a rumor. But how do we spread this rumor? It seems too late for us to hire people now, said Master Li. Yun Chujio's smile became even brighter. There's no need to hire people. I have it ready. But about the fees, Master, don't you have to pay a little? The corner of Master Liao's eyes twitched slightly, but then his heart moved. Thinking about the favoritism of those onlookers at the 10,000 Buddha Dharma assembly, he immediately understood. It seemed that among those people, there was this troublemaker who hired her. No wonder those people were so supportive of her. However, this was also good. With a ready-made candidate, the message could be spread faster. Thus, Master Liao looked at Yun Chujio. How much? Yun Chujio stretched out her 2 hands. There's no need for that. I'm not greedy. Just give me 10 Psyche Power Stones. Just 10. Give me more and I'll be anxious. Master Liaowu was so angry that he snorted. Not greedy? 10 Spirit Stones was equivalent to 1,000,000 high-grade Spirit Stones. How could she not be greedy? How could she be greedy? Although Sect Master Liaowu felt a little pained, he still gave He Xinjiu 10 Psyche Power Stones. This fellow was smiling so much that his eyelashes were about to blossom. He quickly took out his voice transmission talisman and sent a message to Yuan Ji, asking him to hire those people to spread rumors again, saying that there was a precious treasure in the Lianxing mountain range. Moreover, she specifically instructed Yuan Ji to be mysterious when he asked those people to spread rumors. Every time he said something, he would add something similar. I've only heard about it. It might not be true. Don't take it too seriously. You must not tell anyone about this. Heaven and earth will know about it. I'll only tell you about this. You must not tell anyone else. Yun Chujio was too familiar with human nature. The more she refused to tell, the more some people could not hold it in and would tell others. Moreover, the more ambiguous it was, the more people could imagine it and believe it. Moreover, some people might not be really looking for treasures, but just to join in the fun. They believed that things would be very interesting. In order to make it more realistic, Yun Chujio especially let Ji-soo act out a scene. Jesus' but injury was almost healed, but he still felt a little uncomfortable walking fast, so he fell behind the team. Ji-kong and the others kept urging him to be faster, so Ji-soo shouted, "What are you rushing me for? I'm injured, can I walk slower? Seriously, it's like a house on fire, what's the hurry? Isn't it just lonely saying that Liansheng mountain range?" Ji-soo suddenly covered his mouth as he said this. He glanced at the passers-by around him and then limped to catch up with the Zen sect team. Although Jesus' voice was not particularly loud, many people still heard his words and immediately began to imagine it. I think you should take a look at Panda's novel. It was the Liansheng mountain range again? And it was even mentioned by Lonely Little Buddha? Could it be that Buddha enlightened Lonely Little Buddha? Oh my, no wonder there were rumors that there was a treasure appearing in the Liansheng mountain range. It seemed to be most likely true. This treasure was ownerless. Whoever found it would own it. Those who did not go would be fools. Therefore, everyone spread the news. By the time the Zen sect people left the no-fly zone, many people had already heard of this secret. Although the people from the 4 aristocratic families were skeptical about this, and some even guessed that it might be the news spread by the Zen sect, people were greedy. For such a thing, they would rather believe it than not believe it. What if it was true? Therefore, they all followed behind the Zen sect's flying spirit tool and headed toward the Liansheng mountain range. Since this matter was so big, the people of the bitter Zen sect had naturally heard about it. Master Xuanji was so angry that he was twitching. He was very sure that the news must have been spread by the Zen sect. The purpose was to pass through the Liansheng mountain range safely. Wasn't it said that the people of the Zen sect were the most inflexible and inflexible? Why would they come up with such a sinister idea? Master Xuanji wanted to inform the people of the Divine Devil Temple who had set up an ambush in the Liansheng mountain range. Unfortunately, the use of talisman was prohibited in the Liansheng mountain range. The sound transmission talisman was useless. Master Xuanji could only inform the other contacts of the Divine Devil Temple to think of a way to send a message to the person who had set up the ambush. Then, he would bring his people to the Liansheng mountain range. Panda's novel, Come After a Day, the Zen sect arrived at the Liansheng mountain range. Due to the ban on flying, they could only walk. On the way, the Zen sect deliberately slowed down their speed. Therefore, when the Zen sect and the others arrived, the Lan family arrived almost at the same time. Master Liaowu put his palms together and said to Master Lan and the others, "Everyone, did you also hear the news?" Master Lan and the others nodded one after another and began to chat with Master Liaowu. They more or less suspected that the news was spread by the Zen sect. However, when they saw that Master Liaowu did not look guilty at all, they could not help but have some doubts in their hearts. Could it be that this Liansheng mountain range really had an important treasure? While everyone was chatting, flying spiritual devices landed one after another. Among them was the flying spiritual device of the Zen sect of bitterness. Master Liaowu sneered in his heart. However, when he saw Master Xuanji coming down, he still stepped forward and wanted to say a few words of courtesy. After a day of adjustment, Master Xuanzi's mood had calmed down a lot. He looked like an accomplished monk. He had received the news from the Divine Devil Hall that the people ambushed by the Divine Devil Hall had retreated. The Zen sect was really good at scheming. However, it was not so easy for the Zen sect to retreat in one piece. He wanted to see how the Zen sect would continue to perform. Thinking of this, Master Xuanji sneered. "Master Liaowu, our bitter Zen sect happened to catch a few people, and these people are the source of the rumors. According to them, someone hired them to spread the news that there was a treasure in Liansheng mountain range, and the person who hired them was your Zen sect. How do you explain this?" Master Xuanzi's words immediately attracted the attention of many people. Everyone looked at Master Liaowu suspiciously. If what Master Xuanji said was true, then wouldn't they be fooled by the Zen sect? After all, Master Liaowu was the sect master of the Zen sect. He had seen a lot of storms. Naturally, he wouldn't be confused by Master Xuanzi's words. Master Liaowu sighed. Master Xuanji, I know that you are unwilling because you lost the competition of the 10,000 Buddhist Dharma Assembly, but you shouldn't throw dirty water on our Zen sect. I think you should take a look at Panda's novel. Come only when there is a motive will there be action. Tell me, why did our Zen sect do this? What benefits does this have for our Zen sect? Master Xuanji was choked by the question. He could not say that the bitter Zen sect and the Divine Devil Hall had discussed it and that the Divine Devil Hall's people were going to ambush the Zen sect in the Liansheng mountain range, right? However, he quickly found an excuse. I don't know about this. These are the words of those who were captured. Men, bring those people up. Immediately, the Zen sect disciples brought a few people up. Those people begged for mercy. These are the words of the Zen sect disciples. We have no choice. Yes, and that lonely little Buddha was also asked by the Zen sect to lead the public opinion. In fact, we don't believe that he is a Buddha at all. Panda's novel. Calm Master Liaowu couldn't help but feel a little uncertain. Could these people be the people that Yun Chujio hired? This was bad. However, he felt a little relieved when he saw Yun Chujio's calm expression. Even if these people were really hired by Yun Chujio, they didn't have any real evidence and just refused to admit it. Master Xuanji, how can you accuse us with just a few people? This is too ridiculous. Master Liaowu sneered. Master Xuanji also sneered. Right and wrong are at the heart of the people. I believe that everyone has their own judgment. Your Zen sect has always considered yourselves as a noble sect. I didn't expect you to use such a low-class method. When the crowd heard Master Xuanzi's words, they looked at Yun Chujio with a complicated expression. Let's not talk about whether these people were real or not. Now that they recalled the 10,000 Buddha's Dharma Assembly, some of them seemed to be very happy. They were all talking to Lonesome. Was he really the one who hired them? Were they all fooled by him? At this time, Yun Chujio smiled faintly. Amitabha. Almsgivers claimed that the disciples of our Zen sect hired you. Then, which disciple hired you? The eyes of those people flickered a few times. One of them said, the person who hired me wore a mask. I didn't see his face clearly. Panda's novel. Calm, that person stammered, because he is bald, and he is wearing a Buddhist bead. Yun Chujio's smile grew deeper. Bald, and he is from the Zen sect with a Buddhist bead? It seems that the people of the bitter Zen sect also dress like this, right? Why do you think that it is the people of the Zen sect who hired you? Also, your words are somewhat contradictory. Since the person who hired you doesn't want to expose his identity, why did he purposely let you see his baldi and Buddha beads? Could it be that he is a fool? That person was rendered speechless by Yun Chujio's few questions and did not say a word for a long time. Yun Chujio sighed. Sigh. This penniless monk has never been a person who fakes for fame. If this penniless monk cares about these false reputations, why do I have to hide in the 1,000 Buddha cave all the times? The reason why this penniless monk had followed Master and the others to participate in the 10,000 Buddha Dharma Assembly was also because the Buddha had enlightened them and wanted to distribute the Buddha lotus water. Who would have thought that he would now suffer such slander and criticism? Forget it, this penniless monk doesn't care about these things at all. You can say whatever you want. As the saying goes, those who are clear will be clear, and those who are muddled will be muddled. Regardless of whether it is this penniless monk or the Zen sect who are doing the right thing and doing the right thing, there is no need to waste time on these things. After Yun Chujio finished speaking, she did not interrogate those people anymore. Instead, she said to Master Liaowu, Master, let's continue on our journey. I think you should take a look at Panda's novel. Sometimes, the best way to deal with gossip was not to deal with it. As time passed, it would naturally fade away. Master Liaowu shook his head with a bitter smile. He no longer paid attention to Master Xuanji and ordered the Zen sect disciples to continue on their journey. The crowd of onlookers thought about what had just happened and could not tell who was telling the truth. Therefore, they decided to follow the Zen sect people into the Liansheng mountain range to have a look. Since they were already here, what if it was true? Master Xuanji thought that the Zen sect would definitely incur the wrath of the crowd after such a disturbance. In the end, that lone managed to pull the Zen sect out with just a few words. He was really sharp-tongued. However, he did not intend to give up just like that. The seeds of suspicion had already been planted. When the crowd could not find anything, he would fan the flames again. He did not believe that those people would still be so calm. Hence, Master Xuanji brought the people from the Zen sect of bitterness and followed closely into the Liansheng mountain range. As the name implied, the Liansheng mountain range had the shape of a musical instrument sheng. The mountain peaks were undulating with strange rocks and craggy rocks. The road was very difficult to traverse. Even for these cultivators, their speed was not very fast. In addition, some people came here with the intention of searching for treasures. They searched around, and their speed became slower and slower. Almost everyone was searching around. The Zen sect people did not want to be too abrupt, so they slowed down their pace and pretended to knock around. Chapter 5226 stabilizes the character setting. Master Xuanji looked at them coldly and sneered in his heart. This Liansheng mountain range didn't even have a few high-level herbs, let alone valuable treasures. It would be a miracle if they could find any treasures. After leaving this Liansheng mountain range, he had to prove that the Zen sect was guilty of spreading rumors. He had to make them the target of public criticism so that they could attack the Zen sect in the future. At first, it was still fine. Everyone searched around for treasure, but after half a day, they did not find anything valuable. Some people began to complain. There is indeed nothing here. It seems that Master Xuanji is right. Maybe the rumor was spread by the Zen sect. But why did the Zen sect spread the rumor? What good is it to them? Look, not only is the Liansheng mountain range prohibited from flying, but they can't use talisman seals. Maybe the Zen sect is afraid of danger, so they dragged us along with them. It's really wicked. It can't be, right? I think the Zen sect and lonely little Buddha don't look like such a person. Humph. You know people, but you don't know people. Moreover, Ji-Su didn't say lonely, said Liansheng mountain range, half-heartedly. He deliberately misled us. Yun Chujia's heart skipped a beat when she heard these rumors. If she had known earlier, she wouldn't have let Ji-Su act. It seemed like she was overdoing it. Although she could think of a way to remedy the situation after she got out, the effect wouldn't be too good. It would be best if she could really find some treasure in Liansheng mountain range. However, there was nothing in this lousy place. How could there be any treasure? Because this guy was too focused on his thoughts, he did not notice that there was a protruding rock under his feet. He almost tripped and fell. This guy was so angry. If it were not for the fact that she had to maintain the image of lonely little Buddha, she would have smashed this damn rock into pieces. Ji-Su saw that Yun Chujio almost fell down and quickly asked, "Junior brother Lonely, are you okay?" Although Hei Shinjio was annoyed, she said, "I'm fine. It's just that this stone." Hei Xinjia's words came to an abrupt end because this guy realized that the stone that almost tripped her was not an ordinary stone. There were actually patterns on it. Yun Chujio did not care about the dirt and used her sleeve to wipe off the soil on the surface of the stone. After seeing the patterns on it clearly, her little heart thumped non-stop. She had seen this pattern before, and it was exactly the same as the stone slabs laid on the streets of Supreme City. How could there be such a stone here? Only then did Yun Chujio notice that this stone should only reveal a corner, and if it was dug out, it should be a bluestone slab. Yun Chujio was hesitating whether to dig out this bluestone slab, and there were already quite a number of people gathered around her. Someone who had entered Supreme City immediately exclaimed, This pattern is actually the same as the patterns in Supreme City. Could it be that there's a treasure underneath?" With his shout, more and more people gathered. Yun Chujio thought to herself, who cares if he has a treasure or not? With this green stone slab, she could shut Master Xuanzi's mouth. She had to admit that her luck was not bad. She could find something good just by tripping over it, Therefore, this guy said calmly, "Everyone be quiet. As the saying goes, those who see it will have a share. If there really is a treasure underneath, this penniless monk and the Zen sect will not keep it all for themselves." As soon as these words left his mouth, this fellow's character, which had been somewhat destroyed previously, once again stabilized. He wanted to see lonely little Buddha's luck. He had casually found this bluestone tablet, and he was not greedy for money. How could such a kind person hire a child? Sorry for the inconvenience. Thank you very much. Chapter 5227. The delightful Goei Batsao. At this moment, Master Liaowu and the others also gathered around and asked a few simple questions. Then they got Ji Kong and the others to start digging up that green stone slab. Everyone looked at it nervously. Naturally, what they wanted was not this green stone slab. Since this green stone slab was the same as the one in the Supreme City, perhaps there was an ancient ruin underneath it. It was something from the ancient times. Even if it was just a random item, it would still be a good thing. Yun Chujio was slightly distracted. When she thought of the Supreme City, she thought of Yun Qi and Rui Air. Then, she thought of the last part of the Emperor Shin's sentence. What did he want to say about Yun Qi? Also, what secret did he want to say about the ancient Mesozoic era? By the time Yun Chujio regained her senses, Ji Kong and the others had already dug out that green stone slab. However, other than that green stone slab, there was nothing else. The group was unwilling to give up and began to dig nearby. Not to mention, there were people who dug out similar bluestone slabs one after another. However, most of them were dilapidated. Sorry for the inconvenience. Thank you very much. Even so, the group was still very excited. This was enough to prove that this place was definitely an ancient ruin. Perhaps there would be good things down there. Hence, the digging became even more intense. Unfortunately, after digging for a few hours, other than those green stone slabs, they didn't find anything else. Everyone couldn't help but feel a little discouraged. Now, it was a little useless. If they dug, they might not be able to dig anything. If they didn't dig, they wouldn't be satisfied. Master Liaowu was afraid that it would be too late, so he ordered the Zen sect disciples to continue on their journey and not to stay here. When everyone saw that the Zen sect people had left, they could only dejectedly follow them. After all, there were quite a number of demonic beasts in the Lianxing mountain range. If they were left alone, it would be easy for them to get into danger. Yun Chujio walked for a while and thought for a while. Then, she turned back and put away the green stone slabs. Although these things were not valuable, the patterns were still quite nice. It would be nice to build a kennel for dog too. Seeing this, no one said anything because everyone knew that the green stone slabs were not valuable. Half a day later, the crowd left the Lianxing mountain range. Although they did not find any treasure, because they found the green stone slabs, they put aside the rumors from before. Master Xuanji knew that it was useless to bring it up again, so he simply did not say anything more. He only looked at Yun Chujio with an exceptionally fierce gaze. Yun Chujio did not care at all. What a joke! If her gaze could kill, her grave grass would probably be able to stand shoulder to shoulder with the sun. After some small talk, everyone set off. One day later, the Zen sect returned to the Zen sect. The moment the flying spiritual device landed, the Zen sect finally felt at ease. Although this trip had been full of twists and turns, the result was good. Even if the bitter Zen sect really wanted to attack the Zen sect in the future, their Zen sect had already taken the moral high ground, so they were not afraid of them. Yun Chujio originally wanted to directly ask Master Liaowu about her parents, but because she had been out for many days, the Zen sect had many things that needed Master Liaowu to deal with, so Yun Chujio had to return to her residence first. Anyway, if she ran away, the monk would not be able to run away from the temple, so she was not afraid that Master Liaowu would not keep his word. After this guy returned to his residence, he washed up and began to lie on the bed to catch up on his sleep. Goei Batsao sneakily climbed out of his boots. He jumped on the ground a few times. It was time for him to move freely. He left the wooden house and jumped into the still spring. He waved the grass leaves and swam for a while, then floated on the still spring to bask in the sun. He felt that this small day was simply wonderful. If only he had Xiao Mogu to accompany him. Ahem, what he meant was that with such a tall and elegant grass patch, he needed a maid to serve him, right? Chapter 52:28. One day as a teacher, one lifetime as a father. Yun Chujio slept until sunset. She left the wooden house and began to cultivate beside the still spring. In fact, the still spring did not have much effect on her. She just felt that the scenery here was not bad, so she chose to cultivate near the still spring. The goebatsao floating in the still spring slipped into the water, sneakily swam to the other side, and then jumped onto the shore. This fellow had never been discovered, so it was getting bolder and bolder. After it jumped onto the shore, it placed a leaf on its waist and pointed a leaf at Yun Chujio while cursing silently. "You black-hearted brat. You deliberately isolated Xiao Mogu and me. As expected, you are the most vicious woman. You heartless ingrate. Luckily, I saved you so many times. You don't even know how to let me out for a walk." Yun Chujio, who was cultivating, seemed to have sensed something. She suddenly opened her eyes and looked in the direction of goebatsao. Goebatsao was almost scared to death. Fortunately, there were many flowers and plants growing on the ground where it was. Yun Chujio saw that there was nothing unusual, so she closed her eyes again to cultivate. Goebatsao kept touching its flower spikes with its leaves. Touching its fur did not scare it. It was scared to death. It seemed that she had to be more careful in the future. This stupid girl was too smart. Yun Chujio had no idea that goebatsao had performed a great show. She cultivated for a while, but she couldn't calm down because she kept thinking about the person behind the scenes who imprisoned her parents. In the end, she simply gave up on cultivating and turned around to enter the wooden house. Goebatsao saw that Yun Chujio had entered the wooden house, so it sneakily jumped out from the bushes and jumped into the still spring again to show off. The next morning, Yun Chujio woke up early and saw Master Liaowu. At this time, Yun Chujio had already recovered her original appearance. When she saw Master Liaowu, she smiled and said, "Master, this disciple greets you." Master Liaowu's feelings were a little complicated. There was awkwardness, helplessness, and a little disappointment. If only he had a disciple like Lone. Not only was he proficient in Buddhism, but he was also extremely intelligent. Unfortunately, he was a fake disciple that did not exist. He waved his hand. "Since you have already recovered your appearance, there is no need to mention the matter of master and disciple." Yun Chujio's expression became serious. "Once a master, always a father. Regardless of whether master recognizes me as a disciple or not, you are still my master." Master Liaowu really did not expect Yun Chujio to say such words. For some reason, his eyes were a little moist. Although this little girl was a little mischievous, her nature was very kind. However, he was a monk. There was no reason for him to accept a little girl as his disciple. Master Liaowu thought of this and did not continue Yun Chujio's words. Instead, he changed the topic. "You came to find me because you want to ask about your parents, right?" Yun Chujio nodded. It did not matter whether he recognized her as his disciple or not. Yes, she would be fine as long as she recognized him. Master Liaowu pointed to the seat next to him and said, "It's a long story. Please sit down. I will explain it to you in detail." "Sorry for the inconvenience." "Thank you very much." Yun Chujio didn't stand on ceremony and sat on the seat next to him. She looked at Master Liaowu with eager eyes. Master Liaowu let out a long sigh. "This story has to start with your Yun family. I'm sure you also know that there is a branch of the Yun family's ancestral mausoleum that guards the mausoleum, right?" "Yes, I have always felt that something was wrong with them. Could it be that this matter really has something to do with them?" Yun Chujio asked curiously. Chapter 52:29. The spirit guardian of the Yun family's ancestral tomb. Master Liaowu nodded. "That's right. They aren't really a branch of the Yun family, but a secular force of the 10,000 Buddhas' sacred hall." Yun Chujio was confused. The 10,000 Buddhas' sacred hall? A secular force? Where did that come from? Seeing her blank expression, Master Liaowu explained, There are 3,000 continents, big and small, and each continent has a different level. The Divine Enlightenment continent where the 10,000 Buddha's sacred hall is located is the highest level continent that I know of. As far as I know, the Divine Devil Temple that you have always been afraid of is also based in the Divine Enlightenment continent. Yun Chujio was not surprised that there was a higher level continent on the Heavy Cloud continent, because she had guessed that the headquarters of the Divine Devil Temple was not on the Heavy Cloud continent. However, why did the so-called 10,000 Buddhas temple sacrifice a part of their people to disguise as a branch of their Yun family? Moreover, they were in charge of guarding the mausoleum? Master Liaowu continued, you should also know that 10,000 years ago, the human race and the demon race once engaged in a great war. At that time, the human race was able to win, and the 10,000 Buddhas' sacred hall played a decisive role. However, although the demon race was defeated, they were not exterminated. Instead, they retreated back to the continent they were on. Before they retreated, they left behind quite a number of remnants. These remnants lurked in various continents, waiting for an opportunity to attack again. Master Liaowu took a sip of tea and continued, although those remnants of the demon race can bring some trouble, the 10,000 Buddhas' sacred hall did not take them to heart. What they were truly afraid of was the higher-ups of the demon race at that time. Those higher-ups died on the spot during the Great Battle, but the demon race, in a sense, is undying and indestructible. After 10,000 years of recuperation, they once again entered the cycle of reincarnation. Yun Chujio nodded. She had encountered some demons before, and they were indeed the same as what Master Liaowu had said. Those demons were quite conceited because they were immortal. Death was only temporary. As long as the negative emotions of humans existed, they would form again, but it would take a very long time. Master Liaowu paused again, as if he was in a difficult position about what he was going to say next. He took another sip of tea and then said, Master Liaowu, I have something to tell you. 10,000 years ago, an eminent monk of the 10,000 Buddhas' sacred hall once predicted that a key figure of the demon race would be born in the Yun family. In order to identify him, the 10,000 Buddhas' sacred hall set up an array formation in the Yun family's ancestral mausoleum. Once that person appeared, the array formation would sense him. Yun Fengjin caused the abnormal changes in the ancestral mausoleum, which was why he was sent to the Zen sect by the 10,000 Buddhas' sacred hall. Originally, Yun Fengjin was the only one who was sent to the Zen sect. However, unexpectedly, the floating cloud mountain that Yi Lan was imprisoned near the Yun family's ancestral mausoleum also caused the changes in the ancestral mausoleum. Therefore, he was also sent to the Zen sect by the people of the 10,000 Buddhas' sacred hall. Yun Chujio's heart shook. Caused the changes in the ancestral mausoleum? She seemed to have encountered the abnormal changes as well. However, due to the black bead's reminder, she left the ancestral mausoleum in time. She still remembered the probing gaze of Yun Fengde, the guardian of the ancestral mausoleum. She guessed that he was suspicious of her, but she couldn't confirm it yet. Sorry for the inconvenience. Thank you very much. However, she still had one more question, so she asked, Master, I don't understand one thing. My father should have gone to the ancestral mausoleum to pay his respects before, so why hasn't there been any abnormality before? Master Liaowu didn't correct her address. He shook his head and said, I don't know the specific details. Master, since my parents are demons, why didn't the 10,000 Buddhas' sacred palace kill them directly? Why didn't they escort them to the Divine Enlightenment continent? Why did they imprison them in the Zen sect instead? Yun Chujio asked in confusion. Chapter 5230 was all a ploy. I don't quite understand either, but my guess is that although your parents are suspected of being demons, they haven't transformed into demons yet. If the 10,000 Buddhas' sacred palace kills them, they should be afraid of the consequences. On the other hand, your parents' spiritual power level was too low, and the spiritual energy on the Divine Enlightenment continent where the 10,000 Buddhas' sacred palace is located is extremely dense. If your parents were taken to the Divine Enlightenment continent, they would probably explode and die, Master Liaowu said with uncertainty. Hearing this, Yun Chujio sneered in her heart. The people of the 10,000 Buddha's sacred palace were really hypocritical. They had imprisoned her parents just because of a so-called suspicion. Sorry for the inconvenience. Thank you very much. Perhaps the spiritual energy on the divine enlightenment continent was one thing, but more importantly, they wanted to transfer the karma to the people of the Zen sect. In this way, even if her parents made a mistake or were caught by mistake, the karma would only fall on the people of the Zen sect, and it had nothing to do with the 10,000 Buddha's sacred hall. Moreover, she felt that there were more than just the two reasons. There should be one more crucial reason. Once the demon race made a comeback in the future, her parents would be the best hostages. After all, their identities in their previous lives were very likely to be very prominent in the demon race. What benevolence, justice, and morality were actually all schemes. Seeing Yun's cold expression, Master Liaowu didn't know what to say for a moment. After all, he also knew that anyone would be dissatisfied if they were locked up just based on a groundless guess. Master Liaowu hesitated for a moment and then said, "Benefactor Yun, you have rendered meritorious service to our Zen sect. I would like to advise you that a giant like the 10,000 Buddha sacred palace is not something you can provoke. Just pretend that you didn't hear anything. Don't worry. Although your parents are imprisoned, I have not mistreated them in any other way except for the lack of freedom." Although Yun Chujio wanted to rebuke Master Liaowu, she still endured it. The main culprit was the 10,000 Buddha sacred palace. It was useless for her to vent her anger on Master Liaowu. Moreover, she had no way to save her parents for the time being. She still had to rely on this old monk to take care of her parents. She could not fall out with him. Hence, Yun Chujio nodded. "Master, don't worry. I will not act rashly." Master Liaowu was skeptical of her words. However, after thinking about it, even if she wanted to do something, she did not have the ability. Therefore, she said, "It's good that you've thought it through. You've made a great contribution this time. They'll bring you to see your parents later." "Thank you, Master. However, there's something I don't understand. Listening to your words, since the 10,000 Buddha's sacred hall asked the Zen sect to help imprison my parents, they should be protecting the Zen sect. Then why are you still afraid of the bitter Zen sect?" Master Liaowu smiled bitterly and said, "Whether it's the Zen sect or the bitter Zen sect, they're all ants to the 10,000 Buddha's sacred hall. No matter which side wins, they have to listen to the 10,000 Buddha's sacred hall, so they won't interfere." Yun Chujio's heart was in a mess, so she didn't ask any more questions. She just followed Master Liaowu and the others to the forbidden area and saw Yun Fengjin and his wife again. However, she could see them, but they couldn't see her. Yun Chujio knelt on the ground and kowtowed, swearing in her heart, "Father, Mother, little Jio will definitely save you, definitely." Although she knew that whether it was a behemoth like the 10,000 Buddha's sacred hall or the remnants of the demon race that would attract tens of thousands of people to crusade against them, it was still an insurmountable gap for her. However, she believed that as long as she worked hard and persevered, there would eventually be a day when the clouds would rise to the sun. Chapter 5231. I never lie. Master Liaowu and the others looked at Yun Chujio and shook their heads and sighed. Although they couldn't bear it, since Yun Fengjin and his wife were likely to be reincarnated from the demon race, they couldn't be soft-hearted. Moreover, they couldn't afford to offend the 10,000 Buddha's sacred palace. Yun Chujio felt that there was no need for her to stay in the Zen sect any longer. Her top priority was to increase her strength as soon as possible. At least when she returned to the Lan family, she still had Mount Meru to absorb the lightning. Therefore, she immediately bade farewell. "Sorry for the inconvenience. Thank you very much." However, she did not forget her original intention of coming here. She begged Master Liaowu to help the Lan family at a critical time. Master Liaowu readily agreed to this request. Whether it was public or private, helping the Lan family was beneficial to the Zen sect. Master Liaowu hesitated for a moment before asking, "Almsgiver Yun, how is the recovery of the Buddha's candle? The breaking dawn bell and the Shiwan wooden fish?" Yun Chujio sighed. "The condition of the Buddha's candle was originally better, but it helped me kill Yuan Guang previously. I don't know if it's because it was stained with blood, but it went a little crazy again." It'll bring it back and slowly put things right. After it returns to normal, it'll let it nourish the daybreak bell and the sunset wooden fish. Master, don't worry. I never lie. If I nourish the daybreak bell and the sunset wooden fish, it'll definitely bring them to you. Master Liaowu and the others looked at each other, indicating that they didn't believe him. They now understood that this troublemaker was an iron rooster. The things in her hands wouldn't be spat out at all. Master Liaowu thought, forget it. I can't force anything. Let nature take its course. Moreover, if the bitter Zen sect and the Zen sect fought, he might have to ask this fake disciple for help. Therefore he nodded. All right, but I need to remind you that the bitter Zen sect was a branch of the 10,000 Buddhas sacred hall, so the 5 treasures were also brought down from the 10,000 Buddhas sacred hall by the patriarch at that time. If you meet someone from the 10,000 Buddhas sacred hall, don't reveal it, or you might attract unnecessary trouble. Yun Chujio nodded. Yes, your disciple knows. Seeing that Yun Chujio was a little perfunctory in agreeing, Master Liaowu wanted to give her some advice. These 5 treasures were extremely precious even to the people of the 10,000 Buddhas sacred hall. Back then, it was by chance that they were brought to the Chongshao continent by the patriarch of the bitter Zen sect. However, on second thought, the people of the 10,000 Buddhas sacred hall would not come to the Chongshao continent unless it was absolutely necessary. This little girl should not be able to meet them, so she did not say anything more. After bidding farewell to Master Liaowu, Yun Chujio left on the Zen sect's flying spirit tool. In order to be safe, Master Lei brought Ji Kong and the others to escort her away. Master Lei saw that Yun Chujio's mood was a little depressed and explained, Almsgiver Yun, fate comes and goes, fate gathers and disperses, fate rises and falls, fate falls and perishes. All of these are fated. Fate comes and fate is fated, fate goes and people take it from themselves. The seed is the cause, the harvest is the fruit, everything is created by the heart. Don't force everything, everything has a destiny. Yun Chujio raised her head and slowly and firmly said, Master Lei, I have never believed in the so-called destiny. My fate is in my hands and not in the sky. Whether it is the 10,000 Buddhas sacred hall or the divine devil hall, there will be a day when I will trample them under my feet. Master Lei originally wanted to persuade Yun Chujio not to be so stubborn because he had overestimated himself. However, when he saw the determination in Yun Chujio's eyes, he could not say it out loud. At this moment, Ji Su, who was at the side, whispered, Benefactor Yun, I believe in you. Chapter 5232 Jesus wishes. Master Lei glared at Ji Su and then said to Yun Chujio, Since you have your own plans, I won't say any more. In short, be careful and don't be rash. Yun Chujio nodded. Thank you for the reminder, Master. They'll remember it. Ji Su found an opportunity and entered Yun Chujio's cabin. He scratched his head and said, Benefactor Yun, what I said before is true. I believe that you can do it. You can definitely save your parents. Previously, Ji Su did not know about Yun Chujio's parents. However, Master Lei was afraid that he and Ji Kong would be tricked by Yun Chujio, so he briefly told them about the matter. Yun Chujio smiled lightly and said, Why do you believe me? Ji Su said matter-of-factly, You took away the Buddha's candle without much effort and even turned the jade glass Bodhi tree into a baldi. You pretended to be a monk and became a lonely little Buddha. You even won the 10,000 Buddha Dharma assembly by yourself. Therefore, I believe that you can do whatever you want. Yun Chujio looked at Jesus' serious face and said with a smile, Senior brother Ji Su, do you have any wishes? Ji Su rubbed his chin and laughed. I don't have any lofty aspirations. I just want to cultivate well. Yun Chujio pouted. Senior brother Ji Su, don't you know that you always rub your chin every time you lie? Ji Su choked and laughed dryly. My original wish was really to cultivate well and follow my master's life step by step. However, ever since I participated in the 10,000 Buddha Dharma assembly and heard about your parents, I have a wish. Forget it, it's impossible to achieve. I won't say any more. Yun Chujio didn't say anything. She just looked at him with a smile, which made Jesus' hair stand on end. He gritted his teeth and said, Forget it. Just say it. If you want to laugh at me, then laugh at me. My wish is to enter the 10,000 Buddhas' sacred hall. It would be best if I could become the leader of the 10,000 Buddhas' sacred hall. Why? Yun Chujia's expression didn't change as she asked. Humph. You've seen it yourself. Whether it's the bitter Zen sect or the 10,000 Buddhas' sacred hall, they don't look like monks at all. Whatever compassion they have, they will feed it to the dogs. If I become the sect master of the 10,000 Buddhas' sacred hall, I will correct this evil trend and let those who practice Buddhism return to their original hearts. Ji-Su was a little embarrassed at first, but later his expression became serious. What he said was the truth. He originally thought that those who practiced Buddhism were the same as him, and they were all kind people who wholeheartedly believed in Buddhism. However, the successive events made him a little disappointed. It was all for the sake of benefits, and he had completely forgotten about the Buddha's heart. After hearing Jesus' words, Yun Chujio really looked at him in a new light. Ji-Su saw that Yun Chujio did not speak, and his face became even more embarrassed. I know. You're laughing at me for overestimating myself. After all, I don't even have the qualifications to enter the 10,000 Buddhist sacred hall, senior brother Ji-Su. As long as you stick to your original intention of helping all living things, you'll definitely become an eminent monk. Your wish will also be fulfilled, Yun Chujio said very seriously. Yun Chujio thought to herself, since Ji-Su trusted her so much, she would definitely help him fulfill his wish. Ji-Su scratched his head, feeling a little embarrassed. He said, let's not talk about this anymore. What are you going to do next? Yun Chujio knew that he was deliberately changing the topic, so she did not expose him. Of course I'm going to find a way to increase my strength. I'm too weak now. Sorry for the inconvenience. Thank you very much. Chapter 5233. Let's Get Married. Ji-Su couldn't help but feel a little embarrassed when he heard Yun Chujio's words. In fact, Yun Chujio was now at the 8th level of the extreme spiritual realm, and her cultivation level was the same as his 8th level Black Lotus. It seemed that he had to hurry up and cultivate after he went back. The two of them chatted for a while more, and Ji-Su took his leave. As soon as Ji-Su left, Buddha's candle said smugly, I have a way to make that little monk increase his cultivation level quickly, but he has to suffer a little. What way? Yun Chujio asked curiously. Let him eat a drop of my wax oil, and he can undergo purification. In the future, the speed of his cultivation of Buddhist power will be much faster. However, the process of purification is extremely painful. It's almost like being dismembered, Buddha's candle said loudly. Yun Chujio thought for a moment, then called Ji Kong and Ji-Su into the cabin and told them what Buddha's candle said. Whether they were willing to try or not depended on themselves. Yun Chujio's personality was like this. If others treated her well, she would repay them greatly. Both Ji Kong and Ji-Su treated her well. However, Ji Kong's personality was more reserved than Jesus. Therefore, as time passed, Ji-Su became closer to her. Ji Kong and Ji-Su did not hesitate at all. They were both willing to try. What a joke. Only a fool would reject such a good opportunity. It did not matter if it hurt a little. Cultivation was full of hardships to begin with. Yun Chujio immediately asked Buddha's candle to get 2 drops of wax oil. Buddha's candle said painfully, these are the essence of my cultivation. You 2 brats are lucky. Ji Kong and Ji-Su did not dare to say anything. They put away the wax oil and prepared to take it after they returned to the Zen sect. After they left, Buddha's candle started to claim credit. Little girl, if I didn't take the initiative to tell you, you wouldn't know about the wax oil at all. I have poured my heart and soul into you. Are you touched? Do you feel honored? Yun Chujio chuckled. Are you really doing this for my own good? Not for the Psyche stone? Buddha's candle choked. Damn it, this little girl was too smart. Nothing could be hidden from her. Buddha's candle indeed had designs on the psychic stone, but it also knew that if it asked for it directly, this iron rooster might not give it to it, so it took the initiative to bring up the matter of the wax oil. Anyway, this wax oil was the impurities from its cultivation, so it was useless to keep it. Of course, even if it was beaten to death, it would not tell Yun Chujio the truth. Yun Chujio did not continue to talk nonsense with Buddha's candle and directly threw it, a psychokinesis stone. Buddha's candle, could you be any more stingy? Forget it, it was better to have it than not to have it. Otherwise, if she was angered, there would be nothing left. Sorry for the inconvenience. Thank you very much. Yun Chujio was in a daze for a while. She took out the voice transmission talisman and wanted to tell Di Biming about the recent events. Although she was not sure if she could successfully send it, she still wanted to tell him because her heart was very stifled. Although she never belittled herself, she knew that both the Divine Devil Hall and the 10,000 Buddhas Sacred Hall were too huge. Compared to them, she was as small as a grain of sand. However, before she could send the message, the voice transmission talisman started to vibrate. Yun Chujio thought to herself, she and the pretty boy really have a telepathic connection. She sent her divine sense in, and Di Biming's cold voice came from inside, "Little Jio, let's get married." Yun Chujio was stunned. Why did he suddenly bring up the matter of getting married? Didn't they say that they would wait until the matter of the Divine Devil Hall was settled before getting married? Chapter 5234 Marriage. Then Yun Chujio really could not understand why Di Biming would suddenly mention marriage. Could it be because she had said that she had become a monk, so she was agitated? That did not make sense. She had already told him the truth. Logically speaking, he would not think otherwise. Could it be that something was going to happen again? She was at a loss and asked, "Have you recovered your memory?" "Yes." A certain lord's answer was as short as ever. "Didn't you say that you would wait for the God-Fiend Temple's matters to be settled before getting married? Why have you changed your mind?" Yun Chujio really could not understand what was going on, so she asked directly. "It's nothing. I just want to get married as soon as possible to avoid any unforeseen circumstances." Di Biming's tone was unperturbed, but Yun Chujio could hear a hint of anxiety in it. She frowned slightly. The gigolo must be hiding something from her. However, she did not plan to marry someone else, so let's get married. In case the gigolo was seduced by some flirtatious slut. Hence, she replied, "All right, let's get married then. I'll wait for you in the Imperial City." "Okay." Yun Chujio pouted. "What a tsundra." Yun Chujio kept the voice transmission talisman and pondered for a while, but she could not think of a reason for Di Biming to suddenly get married, so she decided not to think about it. Previously, the two of them were supposed to get married in the demon region, but they were interrupted when they were about to greet each other. She hoped that nothing bad would happen this time. The journey was very smooth. The flying spiritual device landed outside the Imperial City. Yun Chujio invited a Master Lei to the Lan family's ancestral residence for a visit, but Master Lei declined politely, saying that he had something to do. Yun Chujio did not force him. After exchanging a few pleasantries, she watched as the Zen sect flying spiritual device left. Yun Chujio did not go back to the third branch of the Lan family first. Instead, she went to the ancestral home to see her ancestor. However, she never expected that she would meet Lan Luochen the moment she entered the ancestral home. Yun Chujio cursed in her heart. Didn't that old fox promise her not to let this blue dregs come back? Why did he come back now? Sorry for the inconvenience. Thank you very much. Lan Luchen's eyes lit up. Little Gio, big cousin, I'm in a hurry to go to the toilet. See you later. Hey Shinjio ran away as soon as she said that. She didn't want to talk to this piece of trash, lest his mental illness got worse. Lan Luochen watched Yun Chujio leave quickly, and his eyes became gloomy. A faint blue light flickered in his black eyes. He tightened his hands under his sleeves, and then turned around to leave the ancestral house. Little Gio, there will be plenty of time in the future. One day, you will stop for me. Yun Chujio ran to the study room of the Lan family's patriarch in one breath. Seeing that Lan Luochen did not catch up with her, she finally breathed a sigh of relief. The guy calmed himself down and shouted, "Patriarch, I'm back. Come in." Hei Shinjio hurried into the study room and bowed politely. "Patriarch, long time no see." You look better and better. The ancestor smiled and ignored the flattery. How was your trip to the Zen sect? Yun Chujio nodded. It was smooth. Very smooth. Master Liaowu promised me that the Zen sect would help us as long as the Lan family called for help. Besides, didn't the bitter Zen sect come out? The Zen sect also wants to make the Lan family an ally, so don't worry. The Zen sect will definitely be on our side. The old ancestor of the Lan family had long expected this, so he was not surprised. He asked a few more questions and then asked, "Do you know anything about the new lonely Buddha of the Zen sect?" Chapter 5235. Am not familiar with Lone. Yunchujio heard her ancestor's question and shook her head. Ancestor, am not familiar with Lone. The ancestor thought about it and realized that Lone had been worshipping Buddha in the 10,000 Buddhas cave. It was normal for this troublemaker to not be familiar with him. He sighed. I do think highly of Lone. He's calm and intelligent, but his cultivation level is a little low. At this point, the old ancestor suddenly thought of something and asked, why does that Lone know how to play the jade glass Bodhi leaf? Yun Chujio said calmly, didn't I tell Master Liaowu about the secret skill of the Fanyin kill? I think that Lone figured it out himself. The old ancestor frowned. The thing that she gave to Master Liaowu was really the secret skill of the Fanyin kill? The old ancestor couldn't help but have a trace of doubt in his heart. Could that Lone be the troublemaker in front of him? But on second thought, he felt that his idea was a bit absurd. After all, that Lone was a man, and he still had Buddha power on him. It was absolutely impossible for him to be the troublemaker in disguise. Yun Chujio saw the old ancestor scrutinizing her and found it funny in her heart. No matter how cunning this old fox was, he would never guess that she was the little lone Buddha. Therefore, this fellow had a magnanimous face and did not have the slightest bit of guilt. Seeing this, the old ancestor put down the trace of doubt in his heart. Yun Chujio thought of Lan Luochen, whom she had just met, and pouted, Old ancestor, didn't you say that within a year, Lan Dacha and Lan Luchen's eldest cousin would not appear in the Lan family? Why did I meet him at the door? I have something to arrange for him to do when I summon him back. Don't worry, he won't be back for a while. Moreover, from a selfish point of view, I won't agree to his marriage to you. The ancestor said. Yun Chujio immediately heaved a sigh of relief when she heard that. As for why the ancestor didn't agree to Lan Luchen's marriage to her, it wasn't within her consideration. She was about to marry a gigolo. Lan Dacha would marry whoever he wanted to marry. It had nothing to do with her. However, she did not plan to tell her ancestor that Di Baiming was going to marry her, in case there were any complications. The guy remembered the 500 people that her ancestor promised her. He immediately said with a smile, Ancestor, I've successfully completed the mission. The 500 people that you promised me? Ancestor smiled and said, I'll keep my words. I'll ask Elder Tuo to accompany you to order some people later. Hei Xinjia's smile became even brighter when she heard that. She finally had someone under her command. If she fought with others in the future, she could gang up on them. Unfortunately, Lan Luoyen and the others were afraid. Otherwise, she could beat them up for fun. Ancestor saw that Yun Chujio's thoughts had flown away and waved his hand. All right, you can go and find Elder Tuo now. Hei Xinjio immediately looked for Old Tuo as though she was flying. Old Tuo brought her out of the imperial city and arrived at a camp. The Lan family had tens of thousands of guards, so they could only camp outside the city for training. However, there was a formation set up outside the camp, so outsiders could not see or enter. After Yun Chujio entered the camp, she had a deeper understanding of the Lan family's power. The four great aristocratic families were indeed not to be underestimated. Even though the Lan family's power could no longer be compared to its peak, a 100-legged bug that was still alive was not something ordinary powers could compare to. Elder Tuo brought Yun Chujio to meet the chief of the Lan family's guards, Zhu Chen. He took out the Lan family's ancestor's token and explained his purpose of coming. Although Elder Tuo's status was not to be underestimated, in the Lan family's main camp, no one's words were effective. They only recognized the Lan family's ancestor's token. Yun Chujio was very satisfied with this. It seemed that the old fox was very good at managing his subordinates. Sorry for the inconvenience. Thank you very much. Chapter 5236 Sympathy. Zhu Chen usually trained these guards in the camp, so he knew very little about Yun Chujio. However, he knew that Yun Chujio was the cousin of the Lan family's third chamber, and she came from a lower continent. Therefore, when he heard that the Lan family's ancestor wanted to allocate 500 people to her, he was a little unhappy. These guards of the Lan family could be said to be his blood and sweat, and they were also the lifeline of the Lan family. The ancestor actually wanted to allocate 500 people to this little girl? Wasn't this a little too childish? Previously, he had given Lan Luochen 500 people. That was still understandable. After all, Lan Luochen was very likely to be the next family head. What right did this Yun Chujio have to receive the same treatment? Although her cultivation seemed to be pretty good, so what? Didn't she still have to get married in the end? When the time came, wouldn't these 500 guards be used as wedding clothes for others? Zhu Chen was unhappy, but his expression naturally showed a little bit of displeasure. He said, I will naturally follow the old ancestors' orders. It's just that, young miss, some of the guards might be willing to leave the camp with you. Why don't we adopt the principle of voluntariness? Yun Chujio was so smart. One look at Zhu Chen's reaction and one could tell that he did not think highly of her. He was deliberately making things difficult for her. If no one was willing to leave with her later, the situation would definitely be very awkward. Elder Tuo frowned and was about to say something when Yun Chujio said, How about this? Let's take a gamble. I will only take the guards who are willing to leave with me. If the number is less than 500, I will accept it. But if the number is more than 500, what will the leaders say? Zhu Chen found it funny in his heart. This Miss Cousin really overestimated herself. Since she took the initiative to say so, it was good. He could save a lot of people. It would be good enough if there were dozens of people who were willing to leave with her. Thus he said, Of course. Then do as young Miss says. Sorry for the inconvenience. Thank you very much. Elder Tuo at the side gave Zhu Chen a sympathetic look. You're going to be unlucky. You're going to be unlucky. Zhu Chen saw Elder Tuo's gaze and felt somewhat puzzled. He felt that he might have seen wrongly. Elder Tuo's sympathy should be that the young miss did not sympathize with him. What was there for him to sympathize with? Zhu Chen immediately gathered all the guards to the teaching military field. After stepping onto the general platform, he said, This is the young cousin of the Lan family's third branch. The ancestor wants to allocate 500 people to her. Which one of you is willing to follow her? The entire place was silent. Not a single person moved. What kind of joke was this? The treatment in this camp was quite good. Who would be foolish enough to follow a young cousin who appeared out of nowhere? Furthermore, following a little girl was so embarrassing. Seeing this, Zhu Chen's eyes revealed a sense of pride. Just look, he had already said that no one was willing to follow this little girl. This little girl still wanted to bet with him? She would probably cry and run away in a while. At this moment, Yun Chujio laughed lightly. Leader Zhu, can I say a few words? Zhu Chen nodded. Of course. Yun Chujio looked at the people below and said, I heard that the guards of the Lan family are invincible in every battle. Furthermore, they rule the army strictly. They can be said to be a mighty army. Zhu Chen and the guards below could not help but look pleased when they heard Yun Chujio's words. This young lady knew her place. However, they did not expect Yun Chujio to change the topic. However, in my opinion, she is just average. The moment Yun Chujio's words left her mouth, the people below immediately went into an uproar. Even Zhu Chen's expression did not look good. A little girl actually said such arrogant words. She was really arrogant. Yun Chujio did not continue speaking. She just stood quietly in the distance. Pandas novel. Calm, just a sentence of contempt made you so excited? You guys are a little too impetuous. The guards were naturally not convinced. This wild girl who appeared out of nowhere was simply twisting logic. Unless she had a brain, she would only follow her. I know. You guys don't think highly of me and feel that following me has no future. This is not your fault. After all, the little sparrow knows the ambition of a swan. The crowd below the stage became even more stifled when they heard that. Was this smelly girl here to anger them on purpose? She was a swan, and they were the little sparrow? Her words were too sarcastic. Elder Tuaw frowned slightly. What was this little girl up to? If she belittled these guards so much, wouldn't they be even more unwilling to follow her? Yun Chujio laughed lightly and said, "You guys are very unconvinced, aren't you? You think you're very powerful, don't you? Come, which one of you will come up and compete with me? If I lose, I don't want a single person. Get lost immediately." If Yun Chujio hadn't said those nasty words before, there might not have been anyone who would have come up to accept the challenge. After all, Yun Chujio was still the Lan family's young miss, but she had already provoked the anger of the crowd. The crowd naturally wouldn't care about these things. Immediately, a person dressed in the captain's uniform jumped onto the general stage. "This general, Leng Yun, please enlighten me," Zhu Chen said with a fake smile. "Miss, Leng Yun is at the second level of the Spirit Extinguisher realm. I think it's better to forget about this competition. Otherwise, it would be bad if I hurt you." Yun Chujio glanced at him and said indifferently, "He is only at the second level of the Spirit Extinguisher realm. The one who should be worried about getting hurt is him and not me. I think you should take a look at Panda's novel." When Yun Chujio said this, everyone felt that this miss was most likely not very smart. She was only at the 8th level of the extreme spiritual realm, while Leng Yun was at the second level of the Spirit Extinguisher realm. The difference was not just a little bit, yet she still dared to talk nonsense? Zhu Chen's tone was slightly cold. "Leng Yun, since the young miss wants to spar with you, then you might as well obey respectfully. However, you have to know your limits when attacking, don't hurt the young miss." Leng Yun's face revealed arrogance. "I've received the order. Young miss, please." Yun Chujio knew that these guards were people who rolled on the edge of a knife. She had to use her strength to make them completely convinced, so she did not plan to use some harmful moves, such as chili noodles, talismans, and the like. This time, she wanted to use her own strength to speak. Therefore, as soon as Leng Yun's voice fell, Yun Chujio immediately rushed forward. The sharp palm wind went straight for Leng Yun's face. Leng Yun never thought that Yun Chujio's movement technique would be so fast. Although he dodged it, he was somewhat embarrassed. His expression immediately became a little ugly. He withdrew some of his contempt and started to fight with Yun Chujio. As Yun Chujio did not release her spiritual beast, Leng Yun did not release it either. Otherwise, it would appear that he was afraid of her. However, Yun Chujio's ghostly movement technique forced Leng Yun to only be able to parry without being able to retaliate. Leng Yun was anxious and puzzled. Yun Chujio's cultivation was clearly 3 levels lower than his, and she had even crossed a large level. Why was her movement technique faster than his? Zhu Chen, who was watching the battle from the side, frowned. He had the same doubts in his heart. How could Yun Chujio's movement be so fast? They did not know that Yun Chujio was often hunted down. In order to save her life, she would naturally put her life on the line to practice her movement. Leng Yun was becoming more and more passive. He knew that if this continued, he might lose this competition without realizing it. If that happened, it would really be a disgrace. Therefore, he did not care about anything else. After jumping to the side, he released his own spiritual beast, a huge spiritual tiger. The huge, fiery red tiger looked exceptionally mighty. It immediately pounced on Yun Chujio with bared fangs and brandished claws. The strange grass in Yun Chujio's dandun was practically blooming with joy. It was the Guai Chao. The opportunity for its Goei Butsao to make a name for itself had arrived. As the saying goes, the opportunity was left for the grass that was prepared. It was already prepared. Unfortunately, this fellow had repeatedly injured Hei Shinjio by mistake. Hei Shinjio also felt that this competition was very important, so she did not intend to let it out. After Yun Chujio dodged the attacks of Leng Yun and the huge tiger, she shot out several small spiritual needles. Although Lung Yun did not take Yun Chujia's small spiritual needles seriously, he did not rashly take them. Instead, he dodged them sideways. However, the huge spiritual tiger arrogantly used its claws to catch several small spiritual needles. It even used its mouth to catch a few and looked at Yun Chujio proudly. Yun Chujio smiled coldly. With a flash of her spiritual sense, those small purple needles exploded. The figure of the spirit power tiger immediately dimmed. Its limited spiritual intelligence could not understand why those small needles exploded. Leng Yun was also shocked. He thought, fortunately, he did not use his hand to catch those small needles. This Yun Chujio was quite capable. Just as he was thinking, Yun Chujio raised her hand, and several purple lightning bolts struck at him. Leng Yun was shocked again. This Yun Chujio actually had a heavenly thunder spiritual root? I think you should take a look at Panda's novel. Calm, however, after the initial panic, he calmed down. Although Yun Chujio's lightning bolts were more powerful than ordinary spiritual attacks, he still had a spiritual beast. Yun Chujio was no match for him. As he was thinking, he saw in disbelief that Yun Chujio actually summoned 8 flying swords. No, to be precise, it was 9, because she was holding an immortal sword in her hand. Panda's novel. Kamling Yun hurriedly dodged to the side, but he saw that the spiritual tiger had actually dissipated under the attack of the flying swords. Of course, the main reason was that the huge spiritual tiger had been injured by the small needle of spiritual power. Otherwise, it would not have dissipated so easily. Leng Yun had no choice but to release the huge spiritual tiger again and fight with Yun Chujio again. The two of them were evenly matched, but Leng Yun knew that if they continued to delay, the one who would lose would probably be him. Because the huge spiritual tiger constantly consumed his spiritual power, he would definitely lose the competition because of the exhaustion of his spiritual power over time. He gritted his teeth and released his auxiliary spiritual beast. Leng Yun's auxiliary spiritual beast was a giant spiritual wolf. Although it was not as powerful as the giant spiritual tiger, it was still a big deal. With the addition of the giant spiritual wolf, Leng Yun gradually gained the upper hand. Yun Chujio began to struggle. If she could use a bad move, she would not be afraid. She could just let Xiao Hanyo curse her directly. But the problem was, she wanted to use her strength to intimidate the people below. What should she do? The Goei Batsao in her dantian shook its leaves desperately. Have you forgotten your little cutie? Let me out quickly. Yun Chujio had no other choice now. She could only use her spiritual sense to say, I'll give you another chance. If you work for me again, don't come out in the future. Guai Chao shook its leaves vigorously to express its agreement. Although it had made some mistakes in the past, it was not entirely due to it, okay? This time, it must make the stinky girl look at it in a new light. Yun Chujio decided to trust Guai Chao again, so she released the Goei Batsao. The moment the huge purple Goei Batsao appeared, both Leng Yun and the people below were shocked. Heavens, what the hell is this thing? Goei Batsao? This thing can also be used as a spiritual beast? Can it have combat strength? Leng Yun's 2 spiritual beasts looked at Goei Batsao with disdain. Can this thing compare to them? It's simply trash. Goei Batsao felt the disdain of the 2 spiritual beasts. It didn't say a word. Of course, it also didn't know how to speak. It directly swung 2 leaves and sent the spiritual tiger and the spiritual wolf flying. This time, the whole place was dead silent. This was too powerful, right? Although the spiritual tiger and the spiritual wolf were distracted just now, so they were easily sent flying, but this also showed that Goei Batsao was not ordinary strong. Goei Batsao felt everyone's surprise and felt that it was awesome. If it hadn't given the pretty boy 2 drops of juice, and if it wasn't still a baby, these dregs wouldn't have been scared to death. Just as this guy was feeling proud, he heard Yun Chujio use her spiritual sense to say, Stop showing off, quickly get that Leng Yun off the stage. Hearing that, Goei Batsao looked at Leng Yun, who was a little dazed, with disdain, and then stretched out its leaf to hit Leng Yun. Leng Yun came back to his senses and hurriedly dodged. Fortunately, at this time, the huge spiritual tiger and the huge spiritual wolf that were sent flying also returned to the stage and blocked Goeibatsao. Goeibakeo's little temper was on the rise. Panda's novel. Calm the giant spiritual tiger and the giant spiritual wolf were sent flying again. This time, it was even more tragic as they were directly sent flying. Lung Yun gritted his teeth and prepared to release the giant spiritual tiger and the giant spiritual wolf again. However, Yun Chujia's flying sword had arrived. He had no choice but to stop the release and dodge the flying sword. However, just as he dodged the flying sword, the leaves of Goeibatsao had already come at him. He had no choice but to dodge the attack of Goeibatsao again. Lung Yun was forced into a sorry state. He did not even have the time to release the spiritual beast. In the end, he was pulled off the stage by the leaves of Goeibatsao. Goeibakeo's heart was filled with joy. Complete victory. Who else? Who else? It said that once Goeibatsao appeared, who else could compete with it? Yun Chujio really couldn't be bothered to watch it show off. Moreover, she was afraid that if she let this fellow stay on the stage for too long, it would cause some trouble, so she directly cut off the spiritual power supply. Goeibatsao could actually hold on for a while, but in order to save up a small amount of money, it pretended that its spiritual power had disappeared. In fact, he continued to watch Yun Chujia's show. Lung Yun was not injured, but he was defeated. He said with a red face, "I lost." Yun Chujio did not say anything unpleasant, but said, "Thank you for letting me win. Everyone, I'm sure you have seen my strength, so I won't say anything more. The old ancestor has already given me the right to compete for the position of young master. Moreover, in the previous divine relic trial, it was my credit that the 4 families were able to escape unscathed. In addition, I can promise you that as long as you become my subordinates, your salary will be doubled. The medicinal pills will be doubled. Of course, I, Yun Chujio, will not accept useless people. If you don't have enough confidence to become a powerhouse, then there's no need for you to follow me. Now, if anyone wants to follow me, step out." When everyone heard Yun Chujia's words, they could not help but stir up a commotion. Originally, they did not have any interest in this cousin lady. Although her cultivation seemed to be alright, her combat strength was definitely not as good as the guards who lived on the edge of knives all year round. However, they did not expect that this cousin lady was not only not weak in combat strength, she could even be called valiant. She was actually able to cross 3 levels and defeat Lung Yun. This was simply inconceivable. One had to know that not only were they 3 levels apart, but they had also crossed a large level. The strong were the most respected among cultivators. After they had witnessed Yun Chujia's combat strength, their previous prejudice had also dissipated. In addition, when they heard about the attractive conditions of double salary and double pills, many people were tempted. However, they were more or less hesitant. After all, this was a major decision. At this moment, Lung Yun was the first to stand out. "I am willing to follow Miss Cousin." Lung Yun was very practical. He had just lost to Yun Chujio. If he stayed in the main camp, he would be laughed at in the future. However, if he became Yun Chujia's subordinate, this problem would not exist. After all, Yun Chujio was the master. Moreover, he had been dragged off the stage by that Goeibatsao just now. If he followed Yun Chujio, he would be able to see what the Goeibatsao was capable of. The moment Lung Yun stepped out, the team that he had originally led all stepped out. Panda's novel. Those who were initially hesitant saw that Lung Yun's team had stepped forward, and they did not hesitate any longer and stepped forward as well. Everyone had the mentality of following the crowd. Seeing that more and more people were stepping forward, some who were wavering also stepped forward. Zhu Chen saw that more and more people were stepping forward, and his expression changed drastically. If he did not stop them, half of the people would probably be taken away by this young miss. I think you should take a look at Panda's novel. Come, alright, that's it. Under Zhu Chen's command, everyone stopped stepping out. Some of the people who were initially hesitant couldn't help but feel annoyed. If they had known earlier, they would have stepped out earlier. What a pity! Humans were like this. In fact, they might not like certain things or things so much. However, once they couldn't get what they wanted, they would magnify this kind of desire infinitely. Zhu Chen took a rough look and saw that there were 2,000 to 3,000 people who had come out. This was far more than the 500 people he had mentioned before. He squeezed out a smile and said, "Miss Cousin, you can choose 500 people from them." Yun Chujio looked at him with a smile that was not a smile. 500 people? I have made a bet with you before. As long as they are willing to come with me, you won't stop them. Why, do you want to go back on your word now? Don't the leaders know that there are no jokes in the military? Don't they know that military orders are like a mountain? Or is your leader simply a person who doesn't keep his word? Zhu Chen finally understood why Elder Tua had looked at him sympathetically before. It turned out that this cousin lady looked like a little sheep, but in fact, she was a wolf in sheep's clothing. And she was the kind of wolf that would eat people without spitting out their bones. He could only look at Elder Tua for help. If he really let the young lady take these people away, he would have done his best. Elder Tua smiled and looked like he could not help her. Zhu Chen's heart sank. He knew that he could only ask Yun Chujio for help. When he thought of how he had belittled and neglected her before, cold sweat broke out on his forehead. He was afraid that he would not be able to pass this test easily. Zhu Chen said shamelessly, "Miss, I was blind before and neglected you. Please don't lower yourself to my level. I apologize to you." Zhu Chen's face flushed red. In this camp, he could call the wind and summon the rain. It was the first time he had apologized. However, there was no other way. If he did not apologize, he would really let this young cousin take all of them away. The consequences were simply unimaginable. Yun Chujio saw that Zhu Chen was like this, so she did not continue to make things difficult. After all, Zhu Chen's status in the Lan family was extraordinary, so there was no need to go too far. Thus, she smiled faintly and said, "Leader Zhu, what are you doing? I was just joking with you. We agreed on 500 people, so we'll naturally have 500 people." Zhu Chen, joking? Your joke can scare people to death, okay? However, when he heard that she had relented, his heart finally calmed down, and the smile on his face became more sincere. "Thank you, Miss Cousin. I'll help you select 500 elites from these people." Yun Chujio said faintly, "There's no need. Let's go with the first 500 people." When Yun Chujio said this, not only Zhu Chen was stunned, but the people below were also stunned. The first 500 people who were listed? How was this to be identified? After all, no one had registered. Who knew which 500 people were listed at the beginning? Zhu Chen said awkwardly, "Miss Biao, the incident just now happened suddenly. I did not ask anyone to register, so the first 500 people who were listed at the beginning could not be identified." Yun Chujio interrupted him and said calmly, "It's okay. I know who is in the top 500. I can identify them." Zhu Chen, this Miss Cousin didn't lose her mind just because she won the bet, right? She could identify them? What did she mean? She remembered the first 500 people who were listed? I think you should take a look at Panda's novel. Come, what a joke. He believed that she could remember the first 100 people who were listed. That was because the first 100 people were Leng Yun's team. However, the last 400 people were scattered among the teams. How could she remember the order? Yun Chujio did not pay attention to Zhu Chen. Instead, she said in a clear voice, "The people I have selected will stand on the right side of the military field. Leng Yun, lead your team to go over first." Leng Yun immediately led his team to the empty space on the right side, thinking to himself, "Is this young lady talking big, or does she really have a photographic memory?" At this moment, he heard Yun Chujio continue, "The first row on the right, 3, 5, 8, 15. The second row on the right, 17, 28, 35. The third row on the right, Panda's novel." The reason why everyone was so certain was that the person who was called was indeed the first to step out. After Yun Chujio had counted 500 people, she said, "You only have one chance, and it's fleeting. The next time I come to ask for someone, I hope you won't hesitate." Those who stepped out later were very regretful. If they had known this would happen, they would have stepped out earlier. But now, even if they wanted to go, their cousin's miss didn't want them anymore. The arrogance on Zhu Chen's face had now turned into suspicion. This cousin's miss actually had a photographic memory? No wonder the old ancestor would allocate 500 people to her and even gave her the right to compete for the position of young master. As expected, she couldn't be underestimated. Leaders, since I have already chosen the people, I won't disturb you anymore. Yun Chujio said with a light smile. Zhu Chen quickly said a few polite words. Compared to his previous arrogance and coldness, it was like the difference between heaven and earth. Yun Chujio found it funny in her heart, but she did not disregard his face and said a few polite words to him. Yun Chujio brought 500 people and left the Lan family camp. When they reached the imperial city, they went straight to a manor in the north of the city and settled everyone there. The corners of old Tua's eyes twitched. It seemed that this troublemaker had already arranged everything. Otherwise, he would not have bought a suitable manor. Yun Chujio had led troops before. Not to mention 500 people, even 50,000 or 500,000 people would not be a problem. Therefore, after a few words of kindness and power, these 500 people were extremely well behaved. Of course, Yun Chujio knew that this was only on the surface. If she wanted to build them into the team that she wanted, it would still take some time. Yun Chujio chose 5 team leaders from among them and made Leng Yun the leader. Leng Yun did not expect that he would benefit from this disaster, so he was naturally grateful to Yun Chujio. After Yun Chujio had settled the matters here, she returned to the Lan family's third branch. After all this, it was already evening. Yun Chujio had just entered the third branch when Lan Luofang came up to her. "Little Jio, I've been waiting for you for a day. Where have you been?" As Lan Luofang's branch had already been killed by the Lan family's ancestors, the Lan family's third branch now belonged to Lan Luofang's branch. Lan Luofang's days were much better than before, and her appearance was even more beautiful. Yun Chujio glanced at Lan Luofang's increasingly graceful figure. She cursed Guai Chao in her heart for dozens of times before saying, "The ancestor has arranged for me to do something. I'll first pay my respects to uncle and grandfather, and then eat in your courtyard." Panda's novel, Kami and Chujio smiled and went to Lan Dimeo's study. After experiencing the 10,000-year-old swamp incident, Lan Dimeo's attitude towards Yun Chujio was like a spring breeze. He asked a few questions with concern and told Yun Chujio to go back and rest earlier. Yun Chujio couldn't help but laugh. She hadn't forgotten how this old thing used to be. Now that he saw that she was useful, he acted like a kind elder. However, what exactly was going on with that jade token? She had to explore it when she had time. Yun Chujio thought as she arrived at Lan Luofang's courtyard. The two of them ate and chatted. Lan Luofang mentioned the 10,000 Buddha Dharma assembly and said excitedly, "Little Jio, it's such a pity that you didn't go to the 10,000 Buddha Dharma assembly. You don't know that lonely little Buddha is simply too interesting. Especially that debate about which came first, the chicken or the egg. It was so funny that it almost made me laugh to death. By the way, didn't you go to the Zen sect before? Did you talk to that lonely little Buddha?" "No, I'm not familiar with him," Yun Chujio said with a smile. For some reason, Lan Luoyen looked at Yun Chujio's smile and felt that it was a bit strange, as if it was similar to the time when she was bad. Lan Luofang could not help but shiver and quickly changed the topic. She said with some curiosity, "Little Jio, didn't you say that your fiancé is 100 times stronger than Lan Luochen? When will you let me open my eyes?" When Yun Chujio heard Lan Luofang mention Di Baiming, her heart inexplicably felt a little uneasy. The gigolo suddenly mentioned the matter of marriage. She did not know what had happened. When Lan Luofang saw that Yun Chujio's expression was not too good, she asked with concern, "Little Jio, what's wrong? Did I say something wrong?" Yun Chujio shook her head and smiled. "No, I just haven't seen him for a long time, so I was a little distracted. Don't talk about me. When will second aunt find a husband for you?" Lan Luofang's face flushed red. "Don't spout nonsense. I'm not getting married." Yun Chujio saw that she was very embarrassed and did not continue this topic. Instead, she started to chat about other things. After dinner, Yun Chujio returned to her own courtyard. After bathing, Yun Chujio took out Di Biming's voice transmission talisman. She thought about it and kept it. Since the gigolo said that he was going to get married, he would definitely come over. It was better to meet him first. At this moment, a cold voice came from outside the room. Little Gio. Panda's novel. Calm, she did not even bother to put on her shoes. She got off the bed and ran to the door to open it. Outside the room, a man in white stood tall. The moonlight cast a faint halo on him. For a moment, Yun Chujio felt that the person in front of her was not real, as if he would disappear at any time. Thinking of this, a wave of panic rose in her heart. She threw herself to his side and wrapped her arms around his waist tightly. Di Biming looked at the person who was hugging him tightly. There was a look of pain and guilt in his eyes. When he saw that Yun Chujio was barefooted, he quickly carried her in his arms. Yun Chujio cried out in surprise and quickly wrapped her arms around Di Biming's neck. When she saw the pain and guilt in his eyes, she could not help but feel stifled. She knew that something must have happened for the pretty boy to suddenly propose to get married. This dumb guy, he always had to bear the consequences silently. He really needed to be taught a lesson. I think you should take a look at Panda's novel. Di Biming carried Yun Chujio into the bedroom and bent down to gently put her on the bed. He did not expect Yun Chujio to suddenly exert force and actually bring the defenseless him onto the bed. Furthermore, she flipped over. She sat on top of him. A certain someone did not expect such a situation to happen. He actually forgot to react for a moment. There were no lights in the room. Only the dim moonlight shone through the window. The young girl's eyes were shockingly bright. Di Biming felt as though his entire being was immersed in those eyes that were as bright as the stars. At this moment, the corner of the young girl's mouth curled up slightly and she suddenly kissed him. For a moment, the words that he wanted to say and the chaotic thoughts in his heart were thrown out of his mind. He only wanted to cling onto the person in front of him. However, a sharp pain came from his lips. He let out a low cry. Before he could say anything, he saw that the usually bright and beautiful girl was already crying. His heart instantly tightened. He did not care about his bleeding lips. He sat up and hurriedly used his hand to wipe the tears on the girl's face. Little Gio, what happened to you? Yun Chujio only sobbed quietly and did not say anything. She was so heartbroken that he almost died. Little Gio, say something. What happened? Who bullied you? Tell me, I'll kill him for you. Yun Chujio ignored him and wiped her tears with her hands. Then she lay on the bed and wailed. The man was even more panicked now. He was so anxious that his forehead was covered in sweat, but he did not know how to comfort her. He wished that he could bang his head against the wall. Hei Shinjio, who was crying loudly, caught a glimpse of the Lord's frantic look through the gaps of her fingers. A cunning gleam flashed in her eyes. She said sobbingly, I know that you don't love me anymore. The Lord did not have time to be reserved at this moment. He said hurriedly, How can I not love you? I've only loved you for my entire life. If you don't believe me, I can swear to the heavens. Sob, sob, you're just saying it nicely. If you love me, why are you always hiding things from me? You're treating me like an outsider. Sob, sob, I want to be your wife, I don't want to be an outsider. My wife, you're my wife. I'll listen to you no matter what you say. Don't cry now, lest you hurt your body from crying. Panda's novel, calmed strange grass in his dantian shook its leaves. How did this evil star become a fool in front of this stinky girl? That stinky girl was obviously faking it. If she was really that sad, why would she think of saying something about an outsider or wife? But what did a wife mean? Stupid humans love to say things that the grass doesn't understand. Damn it. Yun Chujio saw that it was almost time for her to act like a demon. She threw herself into a certain someone's arms and rubbed against it. She whimpered, My heart hurts so much. It's all your fault. The certain someone didn't know that this person was acting like a demon. When he heard her say that her heart hurt, he quickly raised his hand to rub her heart. He wanted to use his spiritual power to alleviate her pain. However, when he rubbed her heart, he touched a ball of softness. A food that had a special meaning to him suddenly appeared in the certain someone's mind: glutinous rice balls. Yes, glutinous rice balls. Hei Shinjio was both embarrassed and angry. She immediately slapped the certain someone's hand away. "You pervert!" The certain someone looked at Yun Chujio's tear-stained face and blushed. She was exceptionally beautiful. There seemed to be a ball of fire burning inside his body. Then he awkwardly pulled the blanket over his waist. Hei Shinjio, the guy was both embarrassed and angry. He glared at the Guai Chao and said, "Pervert! Shameless!" Looking at her increasingly beautiful face, the Guai Chao felt that it was going to explode. He wished that he could tear the girl in front of him into pieces and eat her, but he couldn't do anything because of the damn Guai Chao. "I think you should take a look at Panda's novel." The Guai Chao and Yun Chujia's Dantian couldn't help but shiver. It sensed the deep resentment of the Guai Chao. As a male, it felt that it had to shed a tear for the Guai Chao. However, there was nothing it could do. A dead fellow Taoist would never die. Having sex was more important than its life. In any case, it wouldn't die if it didn't have sex. A certain venerable closed its eyes and opened them after a long while. Seeing Hei Shinjio lying on the bed with her shoulders twitching, it couldn't help but feel pain in its heart. "Little Jio, don't cry. I'll tell you what you want to know." Hei Shinjio, who was laughing secretly, fortunately, this drama queen could possess her at any time. She immediately squeezed out a few crocodile tears and raised her head to ask, "Why do you want to marry me all of a sudden? Are you lustful and want to have sex with me after marrying me?" A certain someone did not know whether to deny or admit it. Of course, he wanted to have sex, but the key problem was that he did not want to. Yun Chujio glanced at a certain someone's tightly pursed lips and clenched fists. She snorted in her heart. There was indeed something that he was hiding from her. After 3 days of not having sex, this gigolo needed to be taught a lesson. "Sob, sob, 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 I know. The reason why you want to marry me must be because you are in a hurry to marry a concubine. You ingrate. My heart is about to break into 108 pieces." Di Baiming closed his eyes. After a moment he said, "Little Jio, don't cry. I'll tell you the reason." Yun Chujio immediately pricked up her ears. She wanted to hear what this pretty boy would say. Di Baiming did not speak for a long time. However, his expression was very complicated. There was guilt, pain, and a bit of struggle. Yun Chujio felt that she needed to work harder, so she started crying again. A certain venerable clenched his fists tightly again and said with a pained expression, "Not long ago, I unsealed another layer of the seal, and some fragments of memories appeared in my mind." "Fragments of memories? What fragments? Does it have anything to do with me?" Yun Chujio asked curiously. A certain being nodded with some difficulty. It was a memory that he would never want to remember. In the picture, there was only a woman in red who could topple kingdoms and cities. However, the expression on the woman's face was so determined that it made his heart almost suffocate. The woman was holding a huge axe that was suffused with red light. The woman used the huge axe to cut off a lock of her hair and said resolutely, "Di Baiming, from today onwards, our friendship will be severed, and we will never see each other again for the rest of our lives." When Di Baiming saw this memory fragment, his heart felt like it had been split into countless wounds. The pain made it difficult for him to breathe. His head buzzed. He suddenly remembered what Qiying had said. He and Yun Chujio were mortal enemies in his previous life. He was afraid. He knew Yun Chujio too well. Although she was usually very outgoing, she was very clear about her grudges. Once she decided on something, no one could change it. He was afraid that if Yun Chujio really remembered the memories of her past life, she would leave him. He was afraid that if the so-called grudges could not be resolved, he would lose her. He was even more afraid that if Yun Chujio remembered the memories of her past life, she would hate him. "I think you should take a look at Panda's novel." Although he did not know what kind of character Yun Chujio had in her past life, and he did not know what exactly happened, since she was so determined, he must have done something that made her very sad. She couldn't forgive him. So, after thinking about it, he decided to marry Yun Chujio immediately. Perhaps in the future, when she remembered the memories of her previous life, she would at least give him a chance to make up for it, for the sake of being husband and wife. He didn't expect her to forgive him, he just hoped that she wouldn't disappear without a trace. He had hesitated, thinking that it was selfish and even a little shameless, but if he didn't have little Gio in his life, what meaning would there be? Compared to losing little Gio, he would rather be selfish and bear the blame. As long as he could be with little Gio, he was willing to give up everything, even the principles that he had always adhered to. D. Biming described the fragments of his memories once, and then said with difficulty, "Little Gio, I know that what I did was a little despicable, but I don't want to lose you. If you are angry, just hit me and scold me. I have no complaints. I have let you down for this matter." Yun Chujio listened to D. Biming's words with a dull expression and did not speak for a long time. D. Biming's heart instantly sank to the bottom, and his body even faintly trembled. A huge panic struck him. Would little Gio abandon him? He closed his eyes and endured the pain that tore through his heart. He said, "Little Gio, I have let you down." You. Before he could finish his words, he was beaten up by Yun Chujio. Panda's novel. Unfortunately, this guy knew how to hit people without hitting their faces, so he didn't beat a certain someone into a pig's head. The certain someone was willing to do it, and he even felt great joy in his heart. As long as little Gio was willing to beat him, it meant that she wouldn't leave him alone. Chapter 5246. Hey Shinjio beat up a certain someone until he was tired, then she stopped. Although there was nothing on the body that did not hurt, the feeling of fear from a few days ago was gone. He wished he could be beaten up for a while more. Of course, he was not a masochist, but he knew that as long as little Gio was willing to beat him up and was willing to be angry, it meant that she cared about him. Even if she remembered the memories of her past life in the future, she would at least give him a chance to make up for it. The leaves of the Guai Chao in Yun Chujio's dantian were shaking. This fiend was the type that deserved a beating. Not only was he not angry after being beaten up by the little brat, he was actually happy. What else could he be if not asking for a beating? However, this little brat was really vicious. This was purely domestic violence. Fortunately, Xiao Mogu was gentle and kind. She would not be as vicious and cruel as this little brat. Why did she think of Xiao Mogu again? Yun Chujio kicked a certain someone again and sat back down on the bed in a huff. A certain someone carefully looked at Yun Chujio. Seeing that she had no intention of hitting her again, he stood up and muttered, "Xiao Mogu, have you calmed down? If you haven't calmed down, continue to hit me tomorrow until you've calmed down." Yun Chujio snorted coldly, "Shut up, I don't want to listen to you." Hearing that, a certain honored warrior didn't dare to make a sound. He also didn't dare to approach the bed. He stood there foolishly, looking rather pitiful. Yun Chujio couldn't be bothered to look at him. She lay back on the bed and closed her eyes to sleep. The pitiful honored warrior wanted to speak but didn't dare, let alone go to bed to sleep. He could only continue to stand pitifully and comfort himself. As long as little Gio could calm down, he could stand. It was not like he had never stood before. Naturally, Hei Shinjio couldn't fall asleep. After a while, she sat up again and beckoned with her finger. "Come here." The one was immediately overjoyed and arrived in front of the bed in a flash. "Little Gio, you're not angry anymore?" "Sorry for the inconvenience." "Thank you very much." Yun Chujio poked his chest with her finger. "Let me ask you, do you have a pig's brain? Are you stupid?" A certain someone stared at the white and tender finger poking his chest, and his mind went blank for a moment, so he did not say anything. Yun Chujio did not even want to hear his answer, and continued, "I'm so smart, why did I find a fool like you?" A certain being finally came back to his senses. When he heard Yun Chujio's words, it was rare for him to be witty. He said, "This way we complement each other." Yun Chujio rolled her eyes and looked at the pitiful look of a certain being. She said, "Are you stupid? What you remember is just a fragment. How do you know that you're the one who let me down?" "Little Gio, Since you said in your previous life that you would sever all ties and never see each other again, I must have let you down. Yun Chujio pursed her lips. That might not be true. Maybe I was just playing with you. Or maybe I was acting for others to see. According to my personality, I have never used a beauty like you. How could I throw you away? A certain someone did not care whether the words beauty or throw away applied to him. His eyes lit up. Is that really the case? I didn't let you down? Yun Chujio rubbed her chin and rolled her eyes. Although I don't have the memories of my previous life, I shouldn't be able to do such a grievous thing. What do you mean by cutting off all ties? Is that what you mean by cutting off all ties if you want to? At the very least, you should repay kindness with kindness, and take revenge with hatred, right? Never to see each other again in this lifetime. It sounds so sour. I can't say such pretentious words. If I had to say it, I'd say I'd sleep with you for the rest of my life. Chapter 5247. Goeibatsao discovered Di Biming was stunned. That's right. According to Little Gio's character, how could she say such words and do such a thing? However, the memory fragments were exceptionally real. Even Little Gio's eyes were so determined. Was it really not true? Yun Chujio poked his chest with her hand. Also, the most important point is that I said before that the previous life is the previous life, and this life is this life. Don't say that I would never say something like that. Even if it's true, what can I do? Since we've already reincarnated, the past is all in the past. If we give up the happiness of this life for the so-called past, wouldn't that be foolish? A certain someone's eyes instantly lit up like stars. Little Gio, is what you said true? No matter what happens in your past life, you won't leave me? Yun Chujio rolled her eyes. Let me ask you, if you completely recover your memories and find out that I'm your enemy, will you leave me? A certain someone didn't even think about it and said resolutely, of course not. Even if you killed me in your previous life, I would be willing to suffer. Yun Chujio poked a certain someone's chest again. Then that's it. You have to believe in me as if you believe in yourself. Just like how you lost your memories previously, but didn't you still shamelessly fall in love with me? Therefore, we can't be separated. If you have the time to worry about these things, you might as well spend more time with me, the young girl who stayed behind. A certain someone suddenly grabbed Hei Xinjia's hand that was still poking randomly. Then, he leaned down and covered his lips. Hei Xinjio, damn it, men were indeed animals that had not fully evolved. If you want to talk nicely. What kissing? Shameless. Sorry for the inconvenience. Thank you very much. After lingering for a long time, a certain someone finally released Hei Xinjio reluctantly. Hei Xinjio glared at him. Pervert. Shameless. Seeing her exceptionally beautiful face, a certain someone could not help but kiss her again. Hei Xinjio was fast asleep because she had hit a certain someone hard. Di Biming did not feel sleepy at all. Looking at Hei Xinjio, who was sleeping soundly in his arms tightened again, and his eyes were slightly moist. The fear, unease, and even despair that had been tormenting him for the past few days finally disappeared without a trace at this moment. Little Gio was right. He had to believe in her as he believed in himself. No matter what happened, no one could separate them. A certain someone who had not slept soundly for a long time kissed Hei Xinjio on the forehead before falling asleep with satisfaction. Hidden in the corner, Goeibatsao saw that both of them had fallen asleep, so it swaggered out. It cursed in its heart, humans are so troublesome. They always torture themselves because of some unimportant things. Look at how carefree its dog tail is. Once a grass is full, the whole family won't be hungry. Just as Goeibatsao was showing off, it was suddenly fixed in place by an icy gaze. Goeibakeo's head buzzed. It's over. It was too careless. It actually jumped in front of this malignant star. Previously, this malignant star was injured, so it didn't discover it. Now, it easily discovered it. What should it do? What should it do? Who will save it? Di Biming's eyes coldly stared at the purple Goeibatsao on the ground, which was only the size of a pinky, and some of the questions in his heart were solved. No wonder there were some unbelievable things that happened in the 10,000-year-old swamp in the Supreme City. It was all because of this Goei Batsao. Chapter 5248. The fearful Goei Batsao Di Baiming was truly a little surprised. After all, he had never heard of any family's spiritual beast being able to amass a small treasury on its own. Moreover, little Jiao's Guai Chao spiritual beast was clearly the strange grass clone in his dantian. It was truly unbelievable. Goei Batsao saw that a certain one had been staring at it without making a sound, and it felt even more terrified. This fellow had turned itself into a foot tall, and all its leaves were prostrating on the ground. It was as if a human was kowtowing to it, as if it was a lackey. Di Baiming obviously knew what it meant. It wanted to plead for mercy and not let him tell Yun Chujio about its existence. A certain being could not help but laugh. Thinking carefully, although this Goei Batsao had caused a few disasters, it had helped little Jio quite a bit. Sorry for the inconvenience. Thank you very much. However, when a certain being recalled that this fellow's true form had delayed his happy life, its expression immediately became gloomy. When Goei Batsao saw a certain being's gloomy expression, its heart sank. This was bad. This fiend was definitely going to snitch, so it had to think of a way. However, what method could it think of? It couldn't beat this fiend, and it couldn't speak, so it could only accept its fate. With this thought, Goei Batsao decided not to kowtow. It turned into the size of a pinky cap again and slipped out through the crack of the door. A certain being shook its head. It was not naive to the extent of competing with a stalk of grass. If it was willing to go out, then go out. It was just a spiritual energy clone. Goei Batsao ran into the courtyard in a flash. Seeing that a certain being did not chase after it, the fellow drooped its leaves in worry. That fiend would definitely tell that wretched girl about its existence in the morning. Its days of freedom would be gone forever. If it had known earlier, it would have obediently hid in the corner to avoid being discovered by this fiend. However, there was no medicine for regret in this world. How great would it be if this fiend suddenly had something urgent to do and left? If that was the case, he might not be able to remember this small matter of his, and it could continue to hop around. Hence, this fellow began to kowtow to the moon. He prayed in his heart that Di Baiming would leave immediately if he had something urgent to do. He did not know if Goei Bakeo's prayers had taken effect. When the sky was just beginning to brighten, Di Baiming's eyes dimmed after receiving Xue Wuji's voice transmission talisman. He gently woke Yun Chujio up. Little Jio, I have something urgent to do. I have to leave immediately. I'll come back to see you in a few days. Yun Chujio, who was still in a daze, immediately became clear-headed when she heard that he was leaving. She could not help but pucker her lips. Di Baiming said guiltily, the situation is urgent. His words were blocked by Yun Chujio. Yes, he used his mouth. A moment later, Hei Shinjio looked at the lips that she had bitten and said proudly, no need to explain. I understand. You can leave now. A certain someone was angry and amused, but he could not bear to do anything to her. He hugged her tightly and did not say anything. After a long while, a certain someone finally got up and turned around to leave. After hearing Xue Wuji's words, a certain someone was burning with anxiety, so he ignored the matter of Goei Batsao. When he remembered a few days later, he could not contact Hei Shinjio, so Goei Batsao escaped. Of course, these were all future matters. Goei Batsao was still hiding in the ant cave in the courtyard, trembling with fear. It was extremely nervous. When it saw a certain venerable leave, it became even more nervous. It was over. That fiend must have told that wretched girl about the matter. Its days of carefree Goei Batsao were gone for good. You're tuning in to the Passion Pages YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.